We begin this broadcast with some breaking news coming in at this point after attacking Ukraine and global condemnation for Russia in response to Zelensky's proposal. The Russian President Vladimir Putin now says that he is ready to send a high-ranking delegation to Minsk for negotiations with Kyiv. All this according to the Kremlin. Meanwhile, the Belarusian President Lukashenko has assured his strong ally Vladimir Putin that he would be ready to create all conditions for safety of negotiators from Russia and Ukraine. The Kremlin has also said that it considers the demilitarization a critical part of Ukraine neutrality. Some more developments coming in this crisis at this point. Ukraine's defense ministry says that more than 1,000 Russian soldiers were killed so far in the Ukraine conflict. Ukraine state media says that the Ukrainian military vehicles are entering Kyiv to defend the capital. Once more, let's recap the breaking news and the developments coming in at this point, starting with what Russia has said, and all this in response to the Ukrainian president's proposal for further talks for a peaceful resolution to this conflict, especially after the Russian attack on Ukraine. Putin now says that he's ready to send a high-ranking delegation to Minsk in Belarus for negotiations with Kyiv. And according to the Kremlin, Lukashenko, the Belarusian leader, has assured Vladimir Putin that he would be ready to create all possible conditions for the safety of negotiators from both Russia and Ukraine that are currently locked in conflict. The Kremlin further said that it considers demilitarization a critical part of Ukraine neutrality. Remember, the Russian President Vladimir Putin justified the attack on Ukraine by saying that his intention was to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. Now, for more perspective and the recent developments, joining us now is Sergey Strokan, a political observer with the Kommersant Publishing House. He joins us live on this broadcast from Moscow. Sergey, thanks so much for joining us. I want your thoughts on the latest update. The Russian President Vladimir Putin says that he's ready to send a high-ranking delegation to Minsk for negotiations with Kyiv. Could we see a possible de-escalation?
Thanks for having me. Of course, we always stood for a dialogue, so the suggestion of President Putin came as no surprise to me. However, the devil is in details. It is equally true that today President Zelenskyy was talking about the dialogue. However, when we talk about dialogue, we have to understand whom are we going to talk to and what are the basic terms and conditions, actually what we expect from this dialogue. The last thing we want is just to stop the situation halfway, to stop the military operation while keeping intact military regime in Kyiv. Its hostile nature, its pledges to join NATO and to use Ukraine as a springboard against Russia. Right. So it means that if we enter into dialogue, there should be a dialogue about a totally new Ukraine with neutral status posing no threat. But just a dialogue for a ceasefire, that would be pointless and meaningless. I am not sure that Ukrainian side has the same vision of a dialogue.
Right. Just want your thoughts on some more updates coming in. The latest that we have is that the Ukraine Defense Ministry says that more than 1,000 Russian soldiers were killed so far in the Ukraine conflict. And in fact, Ukraine state media is saying that military vehicles are now entering the capital to defend Ukraine. We've been hearing reports of Ukraine soldiers and the army taking up positions around the capital, especially after Russian troops were seen in northern suburbs and gunfire was heard. What's your assessment of the same? What is the Kremlin saying to justify its actions?
Yeah, I understand. So first thing is that when you have hostilities, you may call it war or military operation, always there's also information war, and there are conflicting reports, which most of them can be hardly credible. If you ask me how credible is this report, you know, I don't have any facts, but they look highly questionable, to say the least. When you say that thousands of Russian soldiers were killed. this looks like a fairy tale. I won't say that this operation is just not a bumpy road for Russian army. Of course, it's a bumpy road, and it's quite obvious that Ukrainian army is conducting its own, trying to maybe somewhere to go for counteroffensive. You see, casualties are inevitable. I can't rule out even that probably Ukrainian army can get some tactical wins at the battleground. But the most important thing is that, of course, strategically, the initiative is in the hands of Russian army. There is no way for Ukrainian army to come as some dramatic turnaround in the whole that military operation.
Right, Sergey, these of course are contentious claims. These are contentious claims that we at our end need to verify. I also want your thoughts on something else. We have been talking recently about a new strategic alliance emerging. China's President Xi Jinping has held talks with Putin and supports solving the Ukraine conflict through talks and dialogue. Will this impact Moscow's decision in any which way?
Well, you know, I was analyzing the Chinese position, scrutinizing it very carefully. And in fact, for my paper, I wrote a story on China. And my take is that, and I spoke to experts here, so my take is that China is highly evasive. I want to emphasize that. Because if you analyze the statements that they're making, you see, they refrain from just saying some straightforward things. They're saying some general blah blah about, so we all call all parties for peace and dialogue, we want peace, like that, you know. That's why it's very ambivalent in its nature. So a Russian side, if it likes, it can interpret as the support which is given to Russia. However, Ukrainian side, and if you go to the statements of Ukrainian ministry, it interprets it as a support of Ukraine. So, of course, China is our strategic partner, but China would never, you see, move even millimeter to support Russia when it can somehow jeopardize its relations with the West, because China's foreign policy agenda is overwhelmed, you know, overloaded with the problems. So they don't need additional irritation points.
Right. Let's talk about the topic that everybody wants to know about, the sweeping sanctions imposed by the West on Russia. Will they work to deter Russia in any which way? They have failed to do so clearly in the past. What are your thoughts?
Well, there are some experts here who are trying to downplay the sanctions, who boast that say that they will make us stronger. I am not that optimist, you see. Let us be frank. This is very serious sanctions which can severely hit Russia's economy, because all the question is about financial sector, depriving us of the right to have access to financial assets. That also is a blow to our cooperation in high technology, dual technologies. They want to switch us off from that. So that would not stop our development, but that would, of course, create serious constraints. You in India passed through similar time in 90s. You are well aware of what sanctions is. But as you know, any sanction is a double-edged sword. And also there are two, as I told to my Indian colleagues today, there are two red lines which the West can't cross this time. One red line is that the West can't go for a full-scale war with Russia, because Russia is a nuclear power. And the second red line is that the West can't impose the sanction which would switch Russia out of strategic energy markets. So it means that with all that sanctions, we would be still able to sell gas and oil, which is one of the major, you know, foreign reserves in income. You understand, yeah, what I'm saying, yeah.
Right, absolutely. Sergey, just wrapping up our discussion here, I'm going to ask you the same question that we've been asking all experts and analysts. What, according to you, are Putin's intentions at this point? Will Russian aggression spread to other European nations as well?
Well, I would refrain from using the word aggression, since this is a part of you know, propaganda rhetoric. Of course, what Putin is doing can be questioned. Of course, some may say that it violates international norms, international rulings. But you know well that if we look at international law, it's full of contradicting clauses. Look at Kashmir; it is interpreted in different ways. Look at any other international issues. But let me tell you that the whole story is about President Putin. Whether you like it or not, being very unhappy with the present state of Ukrainian state as such. That's why you see he tries somehow to change it.
Right, Sergey, I'm afraid we're running out of time. Thank you for all those inputs. Yeah, I'm afraid we're running out of time. Thank you so much for speaking to us on WION World as well, and thank you so much for all those inputs.